Welcome to our deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring, well, I guess the intersection of Bitcoin and the fourth industrial revolution
Okay.
and how that could reshape the world.
Wow.
Our source material is an interview with Michael Saylor. He's executive chairman of MicroStrategy. You've probably heard of him. He's pretty famous for his pretty bold Bitcoin investment strategy.
Yeah, definitely a fascinating guy.
So kind of our mission today is to understand Saylor's vision of Bitcoin as like digital capital,
Okay.
and then like what are the potential impacts on global economies,
Yeah,
and also this idea that Bitcoin can empower individuals and nations.
that's interesting. Yeah, I think Saylor's perspective is really unique. He kind of connects Bitcoin to like a much broader context than just finance. He sees it as like a fundamental innovation, almost on par with like fire or electricity.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, he thinks it's capable of like reshaping the very fabric of our world.
I mean, he's certainly not just talking the talk either.
All right.
MicroStrategy's been making headlines with, their unconventional approach to investing in Bitcoin, like raising billions of dollars through these methods, like, convertible bonds and leveraging equity.
Right.
So, like, this has obviously sparked quite a bit of debate, right?
Yeah. Well,
Some critics are even saying that it's a risky gamble.
Yeah, I can see why people would say that. To understand it, I think it helps to kind of break down how convertible bonds even work in the first place.
Yeah.
So essentially, these bonds offer investors the option to convert their debt holdings into equity at, a later date.
Okay.
So this lets MicroStrategy, tap into different risk appetites in the market, offering like a lower risk option to the bondholders, while also leveraging equity for for higher growth potential.
So is that what Saylor was talking about when he was talking about having like the sports car and the family vehicle?
Yeah, that's a good analogy. It's like having both,
Yeah.
like catering to those different needs.
Okay. Yeah, the different risk tolerance.
Exactly.
Right.
It's fascinating, actually, how he leverages that inherent volatility
Of Bitcoin.
Yeah, of Bitcoin, that up and down, which a lot of people see as a drawback.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's like, no. This is like the flywheel. It's the power plant. Like, we're harnessing this to fuel our investment engine.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah, he's a smart guy.
So that kind of brings us to his concept of digital capital,
Right.
which he thinks is superior to these traditional investments,
Like, yeah.
like real estate or gold.
Uh-huh.
So what is it about Bitcoin that makes it so attractive?
Well, he argues that it's economically and technically superior because it's free from, taxes and torts and all this regulatory oversight. And he's a big fan of that instantaneous transferability. And he uses this crazy analogy, like imagine a building you could just teleport anywhere in the world instantly, bypassing any like bureaucratic hurdles.
That's an image that really does stick with you.
Right.
I mean, it makes you think about all those limitations
Totally.
of physical assets,
Yeah.
especially in this globalized world.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got varying political and economic landscapes.
Totally.
Imagine trying to invest in real estate in a country with political instability or, a really corrupt government. That's super risky.
Yeah, and that's where Saylor's like, Bitcoin solves that. It's portable. It's secure. It's like a globally accessible way to store and transfer wealth.
Yeah, regardless of your location or circumstances.
Exactly.
And he's not afraid to make some pretty bold predictions.
Oh, he's not.
Like the Bitcoin market cap could reach like $280 trillion in 21 years. That's a lot.
That's over 100 times its current value.
Yeah. And he even suggested that each Bitcoin could be worth $13 million.
Well, you got to understand his reasoning, though. He believes as more people grasp this idea of, digital capital, they'll choose Bitcoin. It'll be their preferred store of value. And that's what's going to lead to this growth.
I see. So Bitcoin becomes a dominant form of global capital.
Right.
And it disrupts the traditional financial systems we know.
Right. But, this has obviously drawn some criticism.
Yeah, for sure.
From some big names in finance.
Like Jim Chanos.
Yeah. He's publicly questioned Saylor's strategy and the long-term viability of Bitcoin.
Chanos, he's the guy that predicted the downfall of Enron.
Yeah. Well-known short seller. So his skepticism does carry weight. He thinks Saylor's being reckless and that the whole Bitcoin market's like a bubble about to burst.
So what does Saylor say to that?
Well, Saylor's undeterred. He basically says they don't get it.
They don't get
That
it.
they don't get the true potential of digital capital.
Okay, okay.
He compares it to, like, the resistance that the automobile faced
Oh, yeah.
when it was first introduced.
I mean, all these revolutionary technologies, they always face pushback.
Right. I think it's interesting, this clash of ideologies. It's like
Mhm.
the old guard versus the new generation.
Hmm.
And Saylor's confidence, I think it comes from this belief that as knowledge of Bitcoin grows,
Uh-huh.
acceptance will follow.
But his vision goes beyond just financial gains, right?
Yeah,
It's almost like he sees Bitcoin as a tool for social change.
right.
This idea that it can empower individuals.
Yeah, he thinks it can disrupt traditional power structures, level the playing field, especially for people in developing nations.
Who, yeah, often lack access to these traditional banking systems.
Right.
This idea that it democratizes finance.
Gives people more control over their financial destinies.
Right, and empowers those who have been underserved, by the big financial institutions.
Right, who haven't had access to these tools and services.
You give the example of remittances, like sending money across borders.
Yeah.
Makes it cheaper, faster, more secure. And you can bypass all these fees from the traditional money transfer services.
Right. It's like this protocol for prosperity, empowering individuals, businesses, and even whole nations.
And achieve economic freedom.
And prosperity.
He says it's not just some speculative asset.
Right.
It's an actual tool for economic development.
Right.
Especially in those parts of the world that have been left behind by those traditional systems.
Right. But that raises the question, right? Will the industrialized nations, with all their vested interests in the current system, actually allow that to happen?
Yeah.
Allow it to reach its full potential? What if it starts to replace fiat currencies?
It'd be a huge shift in global power dynamics.
Yeah.
It's like a challenge to the existing world order.
Right.
It makes you wonder, would they willingly cede control?
Yeah. And that's what's so interesting, because Saylor acknowledges that tension, but he's also like, look, if you embrace free market principles,
Right?
and if you respect property rights,
Yeah.
you should be open to this. So he's saying it aligns with capitalism and individual liberty.
But even within capitalism,
Yeah.
there's still competition,
Right.
right?
What?
You got stocks, you
Yeah.
got real estate. How does Bitcoin fit into that?
Well, he sees a future where it becomes mainstream alongside stocks and bonds. So it's like, maybe instead of buying that third apartment, you allocate some of your wealth to Bitcoin
Oh, okay.
instead of that index fund.
So he's not saying that those markets will, completely disappear.
Yeah.
It's a shift in...
How people diversify.
Gotcha.
He uses the internet analogy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day, people were like, what's this thing?
Right.
And now it's woven into everything.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine life without it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He thinks Bitcoin could do that. It'll slowly gain acceptance, and then it becomes integral to the global financial ecosystem.
Yeah. It's a pretty thought-provoking comparison,
Yeah.
The internet changed, how we communicate and share information. And he thinks Bitcoin will do that for finance.
Totally. But we got to remember, new technology always comes with challenges.
Right.
Bitcoin's no exception. There are those technical hurdles,
Mm-hmm.
like scalability, the energy consumption, all that's crucial.
And the regulations.
Yeah. Governments are still figuring out how to classify it, how to regulate it. That's going to be a big one.
So, yeah, there's still a lot of unknowns.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I think we've covered a lot about Saylor's vision, the strategy, the impact on individuals and nations. But before we wrap up this part,
Yeah.
I want to shift gears and talk about something more personal.
Okay.
Like Michael Saylor, the person, and how his journey might have shaped his view on Bitcoin and risk.
I mean, his story is really interesting. Resilience, reinvention. He had that big setback during the dot-com crash, right? Lost a lot of wealth. I think that experience really stuck with him. And maybe that fueled his fascination with these alternative forms of value, like Bitcoin.
Yeah. He even joked that if he had Bitcoin back then, life would have been a lot easier.
Right.
It's like this second act in his entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, and it's more than just financial redemption. I think he's genuinely driven by this desire to create a better future. And he sees Bitcoin as this tool to empower the disenfranchised, to promote economic freedom, and just, contribute to a more prosperous world.
So it's idealism mixed with business acumen. It's a pretty interesting combination.
Yeah, very complex. Profit mixed with this belief in this power of Bitcoin to change things.
Yeah, and that's what makes him such a compelling voice, I think.
Yeah, in this whole world of finance and technology.
He's a disruptor, innovator, a reminder that you need mavericks, right?
Totally.
You need people who are willing to break the rules, think differently, to really spark change. His ideas might seem radical to some, but they're making us ask those fundamental questions.
Forcing us to confront them.
About money, about value, the future of the whole global financial system.
Yeah.
It's a conversation that needs to happen.
Absolutely.
We were just talking about Saylor's personal journey, right? And his kind of like idealistic view of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to shift focus and talk about the potential societal impacts.
Okay.
Especially for developing nations. Yeah. He uses this interesting term, storing organic energy.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
It's a really interesting analogy. He connects it to like economic growth.
Okay.
And compares it to like a person with type 1 diabetes.
Okay.
Where they can't store energy efficiently.
Okay.
He's saying a lot of countries, especially in Africa, are like that when it comes to wealth.
So their economies might be generating wealth, but
their currencies are just losing value constantly.
Because of inflation.
Yeah.
So it's like they're working hard, but the system's working against them.
Exactly.
Like running on a treadmill.
And that's where Saylor's like, Bitcoin, this is the solution. It's stable, it's secure, it's shielded from that volatility and those inflationary pressures.
So it's like it gives them that foundation that lets them build and grow.
He gives that example of like sending billions of dollars in aid to a developing nation in Africa.
Okay.
And it might be a temporary boost, but if those funds are just held in a rapidly depreciating currency,
right,
the impact is really short-lived.
But if it's stored in Bitcoin,
it'll hold its value.
Yeah.
And it contributes to long-term growth.
So it's not just about the inflow of capital. It's about
preserving it?
Yeah, preserving it.
And then building on it.
Okay, so this is what he means by Bitcoin being like this protocol for prosperity.
Right. You offer stability, and then it empowers everyone, right? Individuals, businesses, nations, they can break free from the poverty cycle.
And achieve economic freedom.
Yeah.
He really makes the point that it's not just an abstract speculative asset.
Right, right.
It's an actual tool for economic development.
Especially in those parts of the world that have been kind of marginalized by traditional finance.
So this brings up the question.
Yeah.
Right? Will the industrialized nations, with their vested interests in the current system, actually allow this to happen? What if Bitcoin starts to replace fiat currencies on a large scale?
That's a big what if. I mean, that would be a seismic shift in global power.
It's almost like a challenge to the existing world order.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it makes you wonder if those in power would even allow it.
And where they cede control.
Yeah.
But Saylor, he acknowledges that tension.
He does.
But he says if you really embrace those free market principles and you actually respect property rights, then you should be open to Bitcoin. So he's suggesting that it actually aligns with capitalism and individual liberty.
Right. But even within that capitalist framework, there's still like competition, right?
Yeah. Stocks, real estate. Where does Bitcoin fit in?
So he thinks Bitcoin becomes just another asset class alongside stocks and bonds. So it's like instead of buying that extra rental property, you allocate a bit to Bitcoin. Instead of that index fund.
So it's not that those markets are going to, like, disappear.
Not necessarily.
It's more about
how people diversify.
Gotcha.
And he keeps using that internet analogy, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day, people were like, what is this internet thing?
Right.
And now we can't live without it.
It's everywhere.
And he thinks Bitcoin could follow that same path.
So it gradually gains wider acceptance.
Yeah.
And then it just becomes this...
just an integral part of the whole system.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a pretty thought-provoking comparison, because the internet revolutionized communication, sharing information.
Right.
He's saying Bitcoin will do that for finance.
Yeah. But it's important to remember, though, you know, every new technology, it comes with challenges.
Right, right.
Bitcoin's no different. There are those technical hurdles, like scalability, energy consumption. All that's crucial.
And then the whole regulatory landscape.
Right. Governments all over the world, they're still trying to figure out how to classify it, how to regulate it.
Yeah.
That's huge.
A lot of unknowns.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of Saylor's vision, you know, his strategy, the impact on people and nations. But before we wrap up, I want to step back.
Yeah.
And kind of connect this back to the big picture, the fourth industrial revolution.
That's important. I mean, he really sees Bitcoin as a key driver of this whole revolution, alongside those other transformative technologies, you know.
AI. Internet of Things.
Exactly. He doesn't see them in isolation.
Right.
He sees them as these interconnected forces that are reshaping the world.
And working together, right?
Yeah, creating a world that's more interconnected, more efficient, more prosperous.
And a world where technology empowers individuals, breaks down barriers, and just opens up new possibilities.
Right. But we have to be careful because with those possibilities come potential consequences, right?
Yeah, for sure. We have to be mindful of the impact.
Yeah, impact on society, the economy, the environment.
We have to use these tools responsibly, ethically, and they have to benefit everyone.
Right. And that's where the real work is. It's not enough to just be amazed by it all.
Right.
We need to have those conversations, develop the right policies, and really work together to shape a future that's innovative and sustainable.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
The fourth industrial revolution, it's not something happening to us. We're actively shaping it.
Right.
Every choice we make, every action we take.
It contributes to the direction it takes. So as we move forward here, think about this. What role might Bitcoin or any of these other disruptive technologies play in your future?
Yeah.
How are you going to navigate this crazy landscape that keeps changing?
Yeah. Whether you're like a tech enthusiast or a seasoned investor or just someone trying to understand all this stuff.
Doesn't matter. It's important to engage with these questions. Consider how you want to be a part of shaping this new world. Because here's the thing. The future is unwritten. And yeah, nobody has a crystal ball. But exploring these possibilities, having these discussions, that's how we make the best choices.
Yeah. Choices that shape a future we actually want to live in.
Right. And that brings us back to Saylor. Whether you agree with everything he says, there's no denying he makes you think. He makes you think differently.
Yeah. He challenges us.
Yeah. About money, value, the future of finance. It's a conversation worth having.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about Michael Saylor's bold vision for Bitcoin, that crazy investment strategy.
Yeah.
And we talk about the potential global impact,
Right.
especially for developing nations. We even got into his personal journey and how all that might have shaped his outlook.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
But let's bring it back to you.
To the listener.
Yeah, to our listeners.
What can they take away from all this?
What does this mean for their future? What does it all mean?
I think even if you don't agree with everything Saylor says,
Right.
or buy into every part of his vision,
Yeah.
the big takeaway is this. Bitcoin is making us rethink things.
Yeah.
Like our assumptions about money, value, power.
It's challenging the whole system, right?
Yeah, the existing financial system.
Like a giant real-time experiment.
On a global scale.
And we're all in it, whether we like it or not.
Exactly.
And it's forcing us to ask these big questions.
Yeah, like what is money, really? Who controls it?
Yeah.
How can we use these new technologies to, make things better for everyone?
More equitable.
More prosperous.
A better future for all.
Yeah. And Saylor's ideas, they might sound crazy to some people.
They're radical.
Yeah, out there.
But they're starting a
An
conversation
important one.
that we need to have.
And he's pushing us.
Yeah.
He's not just saying, buy Bitcoin. He's saying, reimagine the world.
Reimagine the possibilities.
And whether it's Bitcoin or something else, that's something we all have a stake in.
Because here's the thing. The fourth industrial revolution, it's not happening to us.
Right.
We're shaping it.
Through our choices.
Through our investments.
Even our mindsets.
Every decision, every action, it all matters.
So think about this. What role could Bitcoin or any of these emerging technologies play in your future?
Yeah, your future.
How are you going to navigate this? It's a crazy landscape, and it's constantly changing.
So whether you decide to become a Bitcoin enthusiast or not,
It doesn't matter.
the world is changing.
And we all have a part to play in that change.
That's a big takeaway from our deep dive today, It's not just about understanding the technical details of Bitcoin.
It's about seeing the big picture.
The forces that are reshaping everything.
And figuring out where you fit in.
Yeah, finding your place in all of this.
It's about being curious, questioning things, being open to new possibilities, even if they seem a little scary at first.
Right, because the future is wide open.
The only limit is our imagination.
And our willingness to engage with these powerful forces that are changing the world.
So keep learning, keep exploring, keep asking those big, uncomfortable questions that challenge the status quo.
That's how we build a future worth fighting for.
And hey, who knows? Maybe someday you'll be the one sharing your own bold vision for the world.
Inspired by what you've learned and the possibilities you've discovered.
Exactly.
So thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Bitcoin and the fourth industrial revolution.
Hope you found it valuable.
Yeah, we hope you got some new insights, a fresh perspective.
Keep your minds open, keep your wallet secure, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive.
See you then at